Hello and welcome to another episode of Supercoach Insider. My name is Chris and I'm back with my team vid for round 23 slash 24. And I've been away for a while. And if you've seen the pod that we've just about to release onto YouTube, etc., you would notice that I'm back for this episode. And I promised that I would do my own team pod. So here we are, guys, and because it's been a while, I'm going to have a bit of a different structure to this one. We're going to call this the anatomy of a Supercoach season. So what happened to my team, especially over the last, say, I think maybe even 6 weeks it's been since I've done my initial release. Good decisions, bad decisions. I suppose there wasn't really much content because I ran out of trades, and so doing these weekly updates didn't really make a lot of sense because there's not really much content coming through. But also just life in general, again, happens. Obviously, with the new little boy and family life, it just does take over a little bit. And towards the end of the Supercoach season, starts to be a little less important. You start making a little less time for it. But I do apologise. I'm back today with some great content. I will go through briefly, first of all, this week and what happened this week. And ultimately, I'm going to go back through my trade history, show you how my rank has fared over the last few weeks, the decisions I've made, and how they've been good or bad for my team. I'm going to basically review the season at this point because it's pretty much over for me. I'm not going to do much better. I will show you a little bit about my team. But last week I had 2,440. Pretty average score, to be honest. Round about par. Went down a little bit season rank, another 10% essentially down to 3,047. So first time I've been, in the 3,000 range pretty much all season, and I've been slowly deteriorating my rank every single week since I've pretty much lost trades. Now, of course, what pretty much happened was obviously Nick Dacos out when I didn't have any trades, so I still have him on the bench. I've been running Matty Johnson at M8 because I haven't had Sam Walsh, who is now back this week. I haven't had a donut like this entire time. Like luckily, I've been able to avoid that carnage, and I did manage to captain Bont this week, so that managed to keep me in good stead. But going through it, Sicily 83 is a bit of a kick in the face. I mean, he did obviously a really good score last week, but I was really hoping for a good Sicily score because he's actually become somewhat unique. My other unique in defense in Dan Houston has had a couple of really bad weeks in a row. This 63 was just not on the cards. Again, so those two scores go to their average. There's 30 points and there's another 43 points. Like there's 73 points right there and I'm 25, 23, 33 or something stupid. Yeah, it's not fun. Having a look down, obviously, so Sam Walsh wasn't playing, so I played Matty Johnson on field, so he hit his average of 54. Can't really expect much more than that, but if that was a premium scoring, there's another 50, 60 points. I VC'd Neil last week, so that was whom I threw it on. And I was just said in the previous pod, he had a brilliant game. I thought it was one of the best games he's played all year, and he only scored 97 Supercoach from it. I think he had 33 touches, but only I think it was 9 or 10 contested possessions. So a lot of his touches were uncontested, but I thought I was shocked when I saw that because I actually wasn't watching the Supercoach scores at the time. I just watched the game purely for the game, and yeah, was really shocked with the 97 at the end of it. Dunkley's been moved into my midfield, to cover all the carnage, and I'll go through what I did. Essentially, when Tom Crean went down, I had the option of bringing in a forward and being able to cover because I had Dunkley out at the same time. So Canelio was actually able to move forward. I moved Dunkley into the midfield and I was able to cover that zero. If I was not able to trade, I would have copped a zero that week. So that's unfortunate. Obviously, Briggs and Marshall came through clutch, which was great. And then the forward line. So Rosie obviously didn't hit a big week this week. Darcy Cameron's been okay. Keys with this 36. Now, that's a bit of a kick in the face in its inception. But also, it should have been much higher because he had the game-winning goal. So what do you get for that? Probably 30 points, maybe more. So there's another bit of points that I've just missed out on completely because the AFL doesn't know how to call a goal when they see one. But yeah, so it's been an all right, I would have been, high 2500s, maybe low 26s if things had gone my way, they just didn't fall my way. whatever, that is pretty much the run of the season so far. So we move on, we digress. Um, so what I wanted to do is just go a little bit through my team and a little bit of history of my team. I think I'm in the wrong area here. Yes, history. Yeah. All right. So if you have a look at my rank here, season rank here, that's where we'll go. So as you can see, went from this graph obviously does do a little bit of a good job, but it's skewed. I mean, if you take out this first couple of weeks, I've pretty much been in the top 1% most of the year, and then it obviously started falling. Now, where it started falling, round 13. So that is the second week of the bye rounds, and it has not really picked up since. I did gain a little bit last week, I believe, went up slightly back to 26.97, and then fell back down. So, yeah, it's been a gradual slide. I obviously didn't handle the buys the best. And really, what I tried to do, if you were following my podcast and my YouTube channel earlier in the season, you would notice that the moves that I did around this time were very aggressive moves that were designed to basically um, give me a point of difference against the competition. I was hedging against highly owned players that were scoring poorly at the time that I traded out of in order to gain an edge, and it ended up backfiring. So I will go through the trades that I did specifically, but my team was in fairly good shape, as you can see. Ranked in the top 1,000 here, 662, 601, 584, 830, and then just outside, and then all downhill from there. Went back in the top 1,000, and then all the way back out, and just slowly and gradually just slid out of the top echelon of players. And you can see the direct ranks here, and obviously where I stopped having trades, which was, where was my trades? Tradesmate, yep. So I ran out of trades at round 18, which is where I traded Tom Green. So I left that one trade in there. Round 16 was obviously the week after the buy. So I pretty much completed my team with 3 trades left, and then obviously used those trades to hedge and just completely went against what I needed to do. Now, the great thing with, I need to find where they do it in here. I know they can do it in the app, but I'll have to trade history. Where do we find that here? Trade history, trade history, trade history. Gosh, you think I'd know this website a little bit more after spending that. Oh, here we go. It's on the right-hand side. Spending that long on here. All right, so trade history. Now, I want to make sure that you guys can see this. So, yeah, that's going to be rough. Let's, trade history. Can we somehow blow this up? You can't, can you? No. Okay, I'm going to try and move this, pop this out, and move this a little bit left. That work? Nope. Technical difficulties. Nah, that's not going to work either. All right. Let's see. You can still see them. Yeah, look, you can, but it's just going to be a little bit difficult. All right. So let's go through. So from round 2, can you see those first trades? No, you can't. That's all right. I will list them through. If you can see them, great. I do apologise for that poor setup. I didn't realise it was on the right-hand side. It would be a large amount of effort to try and fix that up, so it's not there. All right, so round 2, my first trades that were in. So round 1, I had a decent result. Round 2, I started the trades. So probably the biggest thing that I did before round 1 even started was I traded out Ben Cunnington. I traded in Harry Sheezel before the bounce. So that gave me 200k. Now, part of the reason to do that was I really wanted Nick Dacos, obviously after that first round, and we saw him play, I think, on the Friday night. So I knew that I wanted him, and then they played, I think, North played like Saturday afternoon. And so I was working out how I was going to get there, and the easiest way I could get there was to trade out Cunnington to Sheezel, especially with the confirmation that he was going to be playing in defence. So Cunnington went down to Sheezel, which gave me the 200k that I could definitely do Ash up to Dacos in the following round. So essentially I had an extra trade, I would say an extra trade, but a free trade there to be able to free up that cash to make sure that I got Dacos. And then I did a sideways trade here from Fergus Green to McKenna. So that's probably my first mistake. Not bringing in McKenna, but I traded out the wrong player. So I hedged out Green who I thought was, I think, let's have a look at his first round score. I don't think it was too crash hot. Yeah, so his first round score, he was a 33, and that ended up being his lowest score until round 7. Um, so I thought, again, a highly owned player. I'm going to hedge out here, and I should have hedged out of Davey. So that's the one that I kept, and I'm pretty confident that Davey had a really great first round score. I think it was maybe in the 60s or high 50s. So hindsight's great. Green was a bad player to trade out. Davey was the one I should have done. That would have been a much better trade. McKenna obviously made his money, so that's fine. That was decent. Round 3, obviously correction week, and I made a. This is probably my a second mistake as well. So traded out Chesser. That was a good move. So obviously Chesser and then got injured after this. So I got out of this, and I traded. I did my first hedge move of the year. So this is one thing that I'll learn for next year is hedging is really risky, and I've still managed to pull out say a top 3,000 or so rank, which is okay, but I'm not satisfied with that, and I've had much better seasons. I don't think this season is a complete loss because you learn from everything, but trading out Wits at this point to Cameron, trading out Wits was the right move. To Cameron was the wrong move. It should have been Wits to English, and I should have just bit the bullet right there and then. Wits did end up getting injured in that next game or two, I believe. So he would have had to have been traded anyway. I went to Cameron, obviously, because I think he missed one of those first weeks. So his price hadn't gone up yet, and he looked like a really, really solid option. Oh, no. So this would have been the round 3 corrections. I think he was averaging 115 or something, 120. So I saw Cameron as an opportunity to trade him in, bank the cash. Obviously, Chandler was a must-have rookie, so that was a good one. But the whole purpose of this was to bank the cash and be able to make some quick early upgrades. Okay, English has not missed a game this season, and he's been, I think, if the highest, if not the second highest, ruckman. So that's a huge miss. So from my team, I just have not had him all year. And it sent my trades into a bit of a spiral because I traded into Cameron. Cameron got injured that week. Now, luckily, he was on a decent score. I think he was on 89. So he did actually make cash, but it was like 30K or something like that. So then I had to trade Cameron. Obviously, who did I trade Cameron out to? I went to Grundy. Now, obviously, Max Gorn got injured. So I went to Grundy. And so Grundy went really, really well for that 4-week period that he had, primary ruck duties. He essentially matched English play for play. So English was going off, but so was Grundy. I think Grundy averaged like 130, 140 over that period. So that wasn't necessarily a bad trade in, but I knew doing this trade at this time that I would have to trade out Grundy at some point. So you're making a trade to make another trade, which isn't ideal. Again, could have gone to English, but English at this stage by round 4 had gone up to 600K, which would have meant that I wouldn't have been able to do this second trade that I wanted to do, which was Ridley out. So Ridley was just underperforming, and this was a good trade. At the time, I think for the next 5-6 weeks, Ridley went to absolute shit, and he was averaging like 90 for that time. So trading out Ridley, good. He did come good, of course, towards the back end of the season, but this was a good trade in my opinion. And I went to Luke Davies-Uniacke. Now, the purpose of this was essentially to hedge against Oliver. Oliver was absolutely killing it. I didn't have him, didn't have the money to be able to get him. LDU in the first 2 rounds had an average of 140, so he was going up in price. And I think he was a laid out in round 3, which meant that his price remained the same for round 4. So I put him in round 4, and he obviously had not recovered fully from that calf injury. And I think that ultimately he averaged, I reckon, maybe 100 flat or 105 for the time that he was in my team until he got injured again. I don't think I can start LDU next year. I like, if you look at this scoring, so look at this, 143, 155. So I'm looking at this saying, this guy is going to be an absolute uber premium this year. And look, proof's in the pudding. When he came back, he obviously was injured during these periods. So this is where I had, round 4, round 5, round 6. He was out in round 7, and then in round 8 he drops a 59 as well. I got this good score from him, this 122. And I think he was injured like 5 minutes before the game was over. So then I was able to trade him. Look, I lost 50k on that, but then he comes back, and over this stretch, he averaged ridiculous. So let's work this out. What he's averaged over this, and now he's injured again, obviously. But he went 94, 134, 129. Oh, mate, these scores are just ridiculous. 133, 127, 106, 105. Oh, sorry, 125. And now he's injured for the last 2 weeks again. So he had 3 different injuries this year, 2 different laid outs. And in that stretch, though, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, he averaged 121. So those are uber premium numbers. That's like higher than Libba, higher than Petrarca this season as well. Like, he's an absolute breakout candidate. The problem is his body is absolutely shot, and he sneezes and he gets an injury. So I'm not sure if I can carry him next year. I think he'll be a decent price. What's his average now for the season? Average for the season, average 113. So you're looking at roughly what Brayshaw was priced at last year. So he'll be about 600k. Not too bad. Obviously overpriced than last year. You're going to pay 600k for a guy that's injury riddled, but with potential high scoring. Here's what I will say. If you want him, start with him. Because at least if you've started with him, then you're only going to trade him out once when he gets injured, which is what I didn't do last season. So this season just gone, I didn't start Tim English because of his 2 injuries in the preseason. And then he came in, and I should have just started with him. That's what I should have done, because then I could just trade him out if he got injured. And then he just didn't get injured. And then everybody had him. Crazy. And then I hedged against him, of course, because he's obviously an injury risk. And then he just plays every game of the season. So, like, whatever. And he takes kickouts like an idiot. This was obviously a bad trade. But the theory's there. So he has broken out. So LDU is a serious Supercoach candidate for scoring. He can score Supercoach. He cannot stay on the park, and that is the biggest issue. So the theory here was the right one. This probably not. So with Cameron and Grundy, probably not. But it is what it is. I thought at the time it was the right move. Again, my rank at this point was still going up and up and up and up and up, even though I had LDU. So regardless of the fact that I had LDU, like, I was still going up in rank. So my team was really, really well structured. The next round, another hedge move. So you can see where this season's going. I traded out Laird to get in Dawson. Now, this really worked in my favour because Laird was laid out one of those games, and then he was managed over a period of, say, 4 or 5 weeks. So I actually did gain a lot of points from going to Dawson in that time. I think Dawson went all the way up to 650, maybe even a little bit more, had some really huge games in that period. Getting Dawson was good. Stewart was obviously good. I did trade out Doherty at this point as well. That's where he got injured. So obviously Doherty to Stewart. Stewart was good all for the rest of the season. I don't think he missed, maybe he missed 1 game. I'm not sure. Let's have a look at Stewart. I think he's just been a really solid contributor again. What's his average been? Average, 113. So slightly higher than last year, but pretty much on par with his injury average. And has he played, how many games he played? 21. Yeah, so he's missed a couple of games. So he missed round 2, which obviously was suspension maybe. I think maybe from that. Or was it injury? I can't remember. So he missed 1 game. So yeah, he's been great in my team, really. Can't really complain about that. And he's had some good scoring. He's been one of the better defenders, obviously. And then I traded out Cam McKenzie. So this was a good one. Van Ruin went really, really well. Made some good money. Traded out Cam McKenzie at the right time. I think he may have come a little bit more cash, but I was happy trading him out at that point to get another rookie that I believe was a must-have at the time. And I got some good on-field scoring from Van Ruin as well. We look at the round 6 trades. So traded out Oscar Baker. So I probably went a little bit early on Baker, to be honest, because he ended up kicking on for a little bit. But I did want, I suppose everyone sort of did these trades. I wanted Matty Johnson, obviously. He looked like a really good rookie. I wanted Matt Roberts. He looked like a very good rookie. Noah Long was the one that I got that not a lot of people did. I thought he was all right. He made 120K pretty quickly. So he was one of the better forward rookies. And I got out of Cowan early as well because I just didn't see him coming back. And then, of course, I bring in Tuke Miller. So what could I have done instead? Probably paid up that little bit extra money to get to Oliver. I had the money. That's probably the move that I should have done at the time. Even though Oliver got injured later, I would have had quite a few rounds of scoring from him. And Tuke got injured this game week. So when I traded him in, he was injured, unfortunately. So as you can see, the next one. So you can see a bit of a pattern here. The theory of doing what I did all correct. The practice and the people that I decided to go with, unfortunately, all backfired. So I've traded in 2 guys so far that on the week that I traded them in, they got injured and I had to trade them out. I was super hot on Day at this point. This is when he came back from his suspension. I think he'd had 2 price rises and he went 139 and 99 in those 2 games. And I was just like, okay, yep. If this guy's going to average me 100, I'll take it and run with it at that price. So I used that money to get in Merritt, which was a good trade in as well. He's been fantastic this season. And I also got in Mitchell as well as a rook. And he was all right. So moving forward out of that, so that was a bit of a correction trade. From here, obviously, this is when Gawn came back in and he bottomed out. So I went Grundy over to Gawn. I think that week Gawn went pretty well from memory. And then he went real average. Took the opportunity to trade in Setterfield. Obviously didn't make all the money that I wanted to, but he got injured here, so he needed to be traded. And I traded out Lockie Jones as well. I think he was also injured at this point. So I took the opportunity there to go Sinclair in. So essentially I used the money that I got and Cincotta from Setterfield and Jones and got in Gawn and Sinclair. So essentially, I sideways one premium and I upgraded the other. Sinclair has been obviously fantastic, so that was a good one. But trading to Gawn again, like 575, I think I could have paid 30K for English or something at this point. That's where I should have gone again. I traded out Ashcroft early, so I probably could have held Ashcroft, but I knew that he had the first buy, which is in round 12. So thought, and I think he had a down game. I think he had a 40 or something in his cycle. In terms of money, that was probably the right time, but a lot of people who held Ashcroft through the buys were killing it because he was going like 120, 130. I think he even hit a couple of 140s over that period. And this is when I got in Oliver. So it was the right time in terms of price, but I think I only held him 2 weeks. Again, another guy that I had to pretty much trade straight out. And then I got on Weddle. So this was an interesting one because the week that I got on Weddle, I could have got on, I think it was Rory Atkins, and I didn't choose to go that direction, even though I could have gone to Atkins. I had the cash. So Weddle was a good rookie, made me the money that I needed to, but Atkins has proven, especially late, that he can score, and he made quite a bit of money. The next week, I ended up. So this is a key week for rookies. So I ended up bringing in Sharp on his bubble week, or it was after one game. I can't remember, but no, it was after it was on his bubble week, and I think the third week. Yeah, it was on his bubble week. I think he made one round of scoring. So he had a couple of decent scores there, but the one I could have brought in again was Bailey Humphrey. And I didn't bring in Bailey Humphrey this week. So again, at 2 weeks where I've just gone the cheaper rookie, I felt like going, and I think Weddle got a good score this week, right? So what ended up happening was seduced by the play that I made the previous week, which was to go the cheaper option to be able to use the cash elsewhere and to upgrade instead of going the more expensive option, which ended up yielding more points. Now, at the time, I didn't think that they would be that good. Bailey Humphrey went on an absolute heater. They were both averaging, I think, 90 or 100 for extended weeks. And so this was a bad trade. Cashed it on Chandler. I think Hopper got injured and LDU got injured. So those are 2 injury trades and Chandler. And then I'm cashing in. And this is the weekend I would say that was probably the downfall of my Supercoach season. So up till now, I had bad luck. Made the right decisions, had bad luck. This is where I really made the wrong decisions. So I traded in Walsh because I thought he would get DPP. And he was obviously, I think he was at 39% or something like this at this point. Like it seemed like almost a certainty that he would get DPP. He was obviously an overpriced selection. However, I figured, and I was umming and ahhing between Butters and Walsh, Butters and Walsh, Butters and Walsh. If I got, I think this week that I traded in, if I traded in Butters, Butters went like 182. Like that's how serious I was. Sitting in my car, and I was cruising the Supercoach app, waiting for some fast food, and I was like, oh, I could just go Butters, like save the 60k or whatever. I think Butters was like 540 or 550k, and then use the other money to get Neil. And that's what I was going to go. I was going to go Neil in and Butters in, and then I was like, nah, I really want. Why get? I said to myself this. I said, what's the best case scenario for Butters? Like, let's say best case scenario. And I was like, okay, like 110. And I was like, well, what's the best case scenario with Walsh? And I was like, well, best case scenario for Walsh is probably 5 to 10 points clear of that. So is it worth paying the extra 50k just to get Sam Walsh instead for as the better forward option? And that backfired because obviously Sam Walsh did not get DPP. He did not get. He wasn't able to be a forward at round 12 or round 18, which was just ridiculously stupid. And then he got injured late in the season. So, yeah, that was a really rough pick. I don't know if I can do it again with Sam Walsh in that Carlton midfield. So I might be off Walsh next year. And so what that left me with was I had like a certain budget that I could get to. I wanted to get to Neil, but I just couldn't afford it with this upgrade. And so I could have got somebody in the Friday night. I can't remember who it was. But I held off on trades because I wasn't final on the Walsh scenario. So I then decided, okay, I'm going Walsh. What's my next best mid backup that I can get in? And I could afford Rowell, and I was like, okay, well, Tuke was out for an extended period of time. Like he's probably going to get a bumper scoring. I think he just had a 160 or something like that, and he had a 3-game average of like 125. So I bring in Rao. Now, Rao went well for the first few weeks, but then he just super trailed off. Even before 2 came back, his scoring is just trailed. And he's had a couple of good weeks, but he's just a super average performer right now. I'm really hoping that next year with Dimmer at the helm, he just gets that little bit better. And I'm not sure if that's going to be possible considering that Dimmer and Mids at Richmond didn't really score that well. So he's a wait and see, but I won't be picking around the starting team next year, that's for sure. But yeah, so this sort of inevitably was my downfall because Walsh didn't average well, Rowell didn't average well, Sharp was a dead rookie after this week. And so I just completely fluffed this. What I should have done was gone Humphrey here, Humphrey for Sharp, Rowell, instead of Rowell I get Neil, and then I get Butters. That's what I should have done that week. Absolutely. And that would have completely changed my Supercoach season. The next week, obviously, I had 2 weeks of Oliver, and then Oliver got injured. So I had to trade him out. I saw the opportunity to get Sicily, which was a pretty easy no-brainer. He's been brilliant. And with the other money, I was able to trade Jimby. As Jimby had been up and down, up and down, up and down, and I decided to cash in on him. And I didn't have enough money to get to like a full premium. I had like my selections were Wines, Bailey Dale, and someone else. I can't remember exactly who that third option was. Dale was obviously the one that I should have got. 100% guaranteed. So another mistake I made here. I went with Wines. He was on I think he just hit his back-to-back good decent scores. I think still sub-ton, but it was like a 89 and a 95 or something like that. And his mid-time was going up and up and up every week. He was coming back from injury. Obviously, he didn't have a preseason, so he was doing that during the season. And it looked to me like they were transitioning to Wines having higher CBA numbers, higher output, and they wanted him to be that big-bodied inside mid. Well, unfortunately, Wine's role has changed basically every single week of the year. And if you have a look at his, I won't pull it up now, but if you have a look at his CBAs for the year and his wing roll time, he's literally fluctuated every week. One week he was having 80% CBAs. The next week it was 30% CBAs and spent the entire time on the wing. The next week it was 60%. The next week it was 45. It's been an absolute shit fight. The worst thing is that I brought him in with a view of, all right, like worst case scenario, I'll trade him in his buy because he had the last buy, so I can flip him at his buy, and then I can gain points that way. But what ended up happening was he scored in round, I think his buy was round 15. In round 14, he scored 138, and so I'm like, well, I can't trade him now. So I made another bad decision, and I'll get to that a little bit later. But I ended up holding him, and then after the buys, he went on a 5 game stretch of 68.8, which was just, I don't even know if you could predict that, even if you wanted to be like the best super coach of all time. Like he had a 5 game average of 110 going into the buy, came out the other side of the buy and averaged 68 for the next five. I just can't describe why. So round 12, here's where, so this is where my rank started to drop. So I traded, so my theory was this. Day, I think, was on let's have a look at Day. Now, Day has killed me, by the way. So I traded out Day here. So I traded him in round, so before his price jumped. I think it was a 454. All right, traded him in here. So he got me a 107 on debut and a 9. Look at these scores. So they just keep progressively getting worse. 107, 97, 84, 88. And then he had these 2 back-to-back 74s before I traded him. So I traded him in round 12. Okay, so even in the round 12, he went 80, 81. And then round 13, 109. And so a lot of people did trade him out at his buy here, right? Because his average here over the 5 rounds was something in like the, I think, low 80s, right? So here I'm thinking, okay, so best case scenario, maybe he's a 90 average and a really bad D6 and he's very highly owned. I'm going to get out of this pick and I'm going to hedge against it. That was my plan. That really didn't work as well as I thought, because after this, so he came back in round 15, first game of the bye, and a 141. And then he had a poor game in round 16, so thank God for that. But then after that, he's just gone on a really, really good scoring run. So he had 107, 120, 90, 118, 98, 98, 118. Like that average over that time that I hedged against him. So 107 for a D6 position, might I add. 120, 90, 118, 118 plus 98 plus 98. Over 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 rounds. So he's averaged 107 over those rounds. Now that would be easily better than whoever I've got at D6. But he's even better. Like he's way better than Matt Rao, for example. Like he's way better than Wines. Like he's 50 points per game over that period, better than what Wines was averaging in that period. That is a ridiculous return. So this is a bad trade. Trading out Day, terrible trade. Really bad. Hedging there. So the 3 hedges I made. So I made what? Wits out to Cameron, hedge. What else did I do? Laird out. Well, that was actually not too bad. I suppose Grundy gone. I kind of was sort of shoeholed into that. And then Walsh, of course. So 3 of the 4 did not work, and 1 of them did. And it wasn't even that good because in round 12 I also brought back Laird. So his scoring returned. I did obviously gain a 50k on him, and I gained 50k from going Laird in the first place down to Dawson. But yeah, probably should have just held him. Seamus Mitchell at this point in time, he goes out again to forward. That was okay. I think everyone brought in forward at this point. And Briggs was obviously a great in. But yeah, I ended up keeping Briggs, of course, and he's now my R2 because I don't have English. So there's that schmozzle, but I could have just used his cash to get a better premium mid, and everyone would have won. Round 13, I traded out Zeeble. Here's another round. So these 2 rounds here, what I used for the buy rounds was to trade out players in their buys that I thought I could gain an edge on in the rest of the competition for the remainder of the season. So Zeeble was a good one because he had really, really bad scores towards the back end of the year, and he was tailing down. He also looked completely injured, like he looked like his body was shot. I traded into Keys, which was really great for a while. I think he had a 5-round average of like 108 or something like that. And then his role changed again, went back forward, and then he died in the ass. So that wasn't great. And then Sheasel. So this one has killed me. Absolutely. Again, another guy. I think between him and Day, the amount of points that I've lost. And again, you look at his 5-round average before I traded him out. So that was round 14 I traded them out. So he had 68, 112. His role was getting shot to pieces. He was moving forward the ball. He was moved on the ball, and he wasn't getting the kickouts. Aaron Hall was in there as well. It was just, yeah. I was like, okay, I don't love this at all. So over those 5 rounds, was it 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 rounds? Sorry. So 6-round average of 88. So again, I thought I could, if I said, okay, well, he's going to average 90, and he might even be less if he's playing forward, and I don't know what this role's going to be like, I might trade him out. Bad idea, bad idea, bad idea. So he did come back, obviously, in round 16, round 17, had some poor showings, and I'm sitting over here being like, oh, this is great, this is great, this is great. And then from round 18 onwards, he absolutely killed it. So outside of round 21 where he played Melbourne, he went 103, 126, 114, and then a bad showing against Melbourne where he went 56, and then he went 135, 136. So the last 2 weeks he's absolutely killed me. Now the problem with this is he's one of the most highly owned players in the game, right? So especially with active players in the top 1%, like he's currently owned by, let's have a look here. Pick starting, 99% pick. How do I get his ownership stats? 64% of teams. So you have to think that, and in terms of active teams, that stat would be a lot higher. So again, another hedge where I'm like, okay, well, I'm going to go against the competition because I know better. And over that period, he averaged 111.6. Absolutely killed me. Now that would be way better than most of my forwards, especially Ben Keys over that period. But also a lot better than all my defenders. So trading out Sheasel and trading out Day would have cost me 30 to 40 points per week, both of them. Now Zeeble was a good trade, but these two were not good. Finally got out of Davey into Buller. Another bad trade. Buller ended up getting one and done. I think he scored 17. Yep, great. 17 points to my team. That was just to get to 18 that week. And the following week, I went back to Cameron, he's been all right. He's been not bad. And I went to Burgess because I need the flexibility for Himmelberg. So the plan was to get in Himmelberg at this point. I traded out Gorn, which was fine at the time, to Himmelberg. And went Weddle to Houston. Who actually I got some really big scores out of him, but he's been really bad the last 2 weeks. So I still think that Houston was a good trade in. And he plays this week, which is good. It's better, I can say, for Doherty, which was my other choice, which would have meant that I would have copped a 0 this week if I had went that way. So that was a good trade in. Himmelberg has been less than average, to say the least, but he has been able... I've played him every week. The plan was to bring him in and try and loop him. I've had to play him every single week because I've had an injury every week since this week that I traded him in. So I wasn't able to do what I wanted to do with him. But, I mean, his scoring's been okay. So I bring him into the bye, 84, 90, 80, 109, 72, 91, 89, 127. So his last week's score was his biggest for the year. It hasn't been terrible, it just hasn't been great. And as an on-field scorer, when I've got guys like Sheasel and Day killing me, and he's averaging maybe, say, 90, and I'm getting a 110, 111 out of these guys, I'm not interested. Another really bad mistake. But look, again, it prevented me from having to field a lot of rookies, so can't really complain with that. Gorn, however, so I trade him out, obviously, because he's killing me. So traded him out around 15. His scoring had just been average, and at this point, Kieran Briggs was averaging. I think he had a 5 round average of like 112 or 114 or something like that. And his scoring had just been mediocre, just hovering around that 90 to 100, sometimes getting lucky to get there. So I traded him out. Then he goes on an absolute heater. They decide that all of a sudden Max Gawn is the number one ruck. They drop Brodie Grundy and he fucking explodes. So since the bye, which was round 14, he went 92, 111, 84, 215, so that huge game, which now I missed, 120, another huge game in 174, 130, 84, and 91. All right. So that is, how many weeks is that? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. That is an average of 122.3. So over that time, he had been the second best ruckman by a long way. So again, hedging him out for Kieran Briggs, who has been serviceable, obviously, but I could have kept Gawn, traded Kieran Briggs to a better player at some point, and gone a completely different route. But hindsight's 2020. Again, with Gawn and Grundy in the team, he was not averaging well. I needed to make the decision. Kieran Briggs was killing it. I decided to go that way. Unlucky. The last trade of what I did was Green to Canelio. Now, obviously, so the reason why I did this was because I had to go to a forward to avoid a donut because I had the Dunkley injury, which I was holding, and then that week I also had Tom Green, which was a late injury. So I needed to trade someone that hadn't already played. That was a forward to be able to cover Dunkley, so that I could switch them around and I think put Matty Johnson on field so that I could field 22. If I didn't do that, I could have done a couple other things. The thing was, when Dunkley got injured, I should have just bit the bullet. So I wanted to trade in Sam Flanders. He was, I think, 310 or 13K or something like that. And I had the money to go Matty Johnson straight over to Sam Flanders. And I was going to do it. I was going to pull a trigger. And then I talked to my Supercoach group that we chat in, and they were like, nah, don't do it. He's a trap. And I brought up his heat maps. I looked at his stats, looked at his time in the middle. I was like, nah, guys, I think something's changed here. Like, it's not normal. Like, this is different scoring. And they're like, nah, it's not. Anyway, he goes, I think, 125 that week. So that would have been 125 on my field. And whoever was my F6 at the time or whatever would have dropped out of the score. And the week after would have had him to cover Tom Green. And he's gone on an absolute tear. So that is a big miss for me in that I was seriously looking at him to bring him in. And I didn't. And he would have been able to cover me for this week as well. So, yeah, huge losses that I just obviously made some mistakes of. So that is my team in a nutshell, guys, in terms of what I did, where I went wrong. Far too much hedging. I suppose the way that I played the game, and if you followed me for a while, you know it's the same, is that I play to win. So I make moves that aren't necessarily conventional to try and gain an edge on the competition. Whereas if I wanted to play it safe and play it conservatively, which is what I probably should do to get a high rank, I would just trade in the obvious decision and I would leave it at that. I generally just don't like playing that way, whether that's just because my risk tolerance is higher. I'm okay with being ranked 3,000th. I don't really mind. What would be awesome is if that logic led me to be a top 100 player regularly. But it doesn't tend to do that because the odds are when you hedge, like especially as much as I've done this season, you're not going to win that much. So it is about calculated risks, and I took far too many of those, and I lost far too many of those. So yeah, just a little bit of a video to show you guys my thought process during the season, what I've gone through, where I'm at the moment, where I'll end up. And hopefully I learn from this and next year become a better player. I definitely think in terms of starting squad, I didn't nail it this year, but I was maybe 1 or 2 picks off nailing it. And I think I will adjust it slightly for next season. I like to say a big shout out to all the content creators that I follow and love. So the Dr. Supercoach boys, who I met for the first time at the Slack event that was on a few weeks back, which was an absolutely huge weekend, and it was awesome to meet those boys. Love them so much. The Fantasy Take guys, obviously George, JD, and Eno, they're fantastic as well. We also met Supercoach Edge this year on the Fancast app. They're great guys. The Centre Bounce guys also come in. Elites, still have some really good conversations with those guys over there every now and then, usually at the start of the season, then it sort of fades off. We actually play a lot of 2K together, so once that sort of dies off, then it sort of all goes into the past, but they're great fellas. And obviously the real condolences that Jock Reynolds has decided to hang up their boots. It's a lot harder than you think, putting in this much effort, producing content really regularly, which is obviously what we struggle with as well, especially when you've got lives now outside of Supercoach and outside of work and everything like that. So thank you to everyone. And obviously that's not everyone that I have absorbed this year in terms of knowledge. DR, Supercoach with DR, amazing lad, and I really love his content. So yeah, fantastic guy. Spiller, Supercoach as well. There's so many guys. Shout out as well to JP, who won last year. He was actually a great sounding board when I was throwing ideas out in the preseason in terms of starting squads and things like that. And Supercoach Mama as well. She's always been fantastic for us to bounce ideas off. So I almost want a big shout out. This won't be my last video for the year, but it's probably the end of sort of my individual team pods. So I just wanted to make sure I acknowledge those guys. And look, thank you guys out there as well. Our podcast, YouTube, everything has always been really, really good for us, and our fans are fantastic. We have every year we grow and we grow and we grow. This year, a lot more than most. We've actually grown exponentially this year. So that has been a really, really great, positive way that the podcast is moving forward. We will definitely be back for next season, so don't worry about that. And we've got some great off-season content coming to you, and we're thinking about other ways that we can diversify our content moving forward. So thank you, everyone, and I'll catch you in the next video. Until then, peace out. Bye.